Hello and welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. We appreciate you coming in for this part of our Alzheimer's and Dementia series in partnership with the Alzheimer's Association Tennessee chapter. And first of all, we do have some items, library books and memory kits that are available to check out if you have a library card with us. We also have some information for both the Alzheimer's Association as well as future programs in our series, and as well as our Caregiver Support Group, which meets on the second Friday of each month from 10 to 11, and that is upstairs at the second floor Learning Center of the main library here. The next month's Alzheimer's program will be Managing Money, a Caregiver's Guide to Finances, and that will be on Tuesday, August 26th at 1:30. If you need any refreshments, we do have some snacks and refreshments on the side here. And then before we get started, I would encourage any questions or anything to be held until the end of the presentation, just for privacy's sake, as we do have WCTV filming the program. And we do appreciate you coming to the Empowered Caregivers Supporting Independence presentation from Ashley Briggs, who has over 17 years in experience in working with memory care and helping people with dementia and dementias and Alzheimer's. Thank you very much. I'll hand it off to Ashley Briggs.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. So yes, as she shared, I'm Ashley. I have been volunteering with the Alzheimer's Association for almost as long as I have worked in the senior living community. But also, like so many people out there, my family is not, has not, what's the word? Escaped. Fantastic. Thank you. We have not escaped the impact of dementia. Within the last year, we lost 2 family members to dementia. So they say it's 1 in 3 people are impacted by Alzheimer's. Sometimes it really feels like it's more than that. But today I'm hoping you walk away with some tools as a caregiver to be able to help support independence with your loved one. And that means sometimes it might look a little different than what independent meant in the past, but giving you as much knowledge as we can. As shared, please hold questions to the end. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can at that time. So, like I said, today we're going to be talking about supporting independence. There are some learning objectives for today. First, I want to make sure you walk away being able to explain the changes. It's not black and white. It's not the same for everyone, but have an idea of what changes in independence are happening for people living with Alzheimer's and other dementias. Be able to describe the 4 steps for helping with personal care activities. List tips to help make activities meaningful. Identify ways to know what is the right amount of support. And describe how dementia affects safety. So most people living with dementia want to make as much or want to do as much as they can for themselves. We all do. We want to be able to do as much as we can for as long as we can. They want to be independent as long as possible. As a family member or friend, as their caregiver, you most likely know the person best. Oftentimes when I'm trying to help families work through ways of kind of changing their approach, it comes down to first talking about that individual. What's important to the person that has that diagnosis, and what's been important to them in the past to help best support them. Other family members or trusted friends can also help you learn about the person, like life history, hobbies, what they like and don't like. When you know what's important to the person, you can find ways to help them stay as independent for as long as possible. It's really important, too, to try to include the individual in the conversation. That helps you from making assumptions on things. It also provides dignity and respect for that individual. So conversations are important to have early. Talk to your loved one that you're caring for about what will you want at different stages from me or from additional caregivers. So we're going to do a quick knowledge check, and you can just kind of shout out what you think. Do you think it's true or false that all people living with dementia need the same amount of support? Absolutely, that is false. Each person living with dementia has different strengths and abilities, different preferences. As the caregiver, you can use what you know about the person to provide the right amount of support. As we say in so many of our programs that we teach with Alzheimer's Association, when you've met one person with Alzheimer's, you've met one person with Alzheimer's. So each person, like we said, is unique. Everyone's level of independence varies. There are other factors besides a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia that can impact what someone can safely do independently. But how Alzheimer's specifically affects independence is it causes brain damage to cells throughout the disease process, which can make it hard for a person to follow instructions, move from one activity or task to another, or even remember the steps in a task. A assessment tool that I've used previously working with seniors in memory care settings is something as simple as asking someone to brush their teeth. It's something we do every day and do it without really thinking about all the steps. And this assessment breaks down that task into 21 separate steps. So think about if your brain's trying to piece together, I do this step and then this one and this one. It gave us an idea of kind of where someone's processing was at that time, on which step you might get caught up on. So how can caregivers help maintain or maximize a person's independence? We want people to use their skills and abilities as long as safely possible. So it's important to focus on what someone can do instead of what they can't. Do tasks with the person instead of just for them. That can be hard to do as a caregiver with many other things going on in life. It sometimes is faster just to do something, but if you can do it with them, you're giving them that independence just a little bit longer. Connect with them instead of correcting them. So as a caregiver, you've got to put on your detective hat. You have to assess the situation, the task, the activity, and make a determination of what modifications need to be made. That could be physical modifications or approach modifications. Sometimes independence comes from us approaching what the task is in a different way than we used to, and they can still do the process of whatever that is, whether it's helping them dress themselves or figuring out appointments, managing money. Sometimes you're just modifying how you are approaching that with that person. As the disease progresses, it can help to break certain tasks into smaller steps. The person might need a little more time, so you have to work time into your schedule, or may not be able to finish all of the steps. So it's about changing our own expectations of what a person can do as well. So we're going to talk about person-centered support for activities. So we want to we define person-centered care during a little bit during a previous session of this, not today, but person-centered care really is taking what we know about that person, hobbies, history, interests, likes, dislikes, and approaching the care with all of those things in mind. Again, one person with Alzheimer's is one person. In the early stages of the disease, people living with Alzheimer's are usually still independent with personal care. Activities like dressing, eating, using the toilet, bathing. However, they will need more support with these activities over time. You'll need to adjust your support as the person's needs and abilities change. What works really well today may not work tomorrow. As we discuss, each person is unique in their strengths, abilities, medical diagnoses. Various things impact what they can and cannot do. It's true that dementia affects people in those different ways, and everyone's independence level is going to vary. So helping them figure out how to follow through those steps is something to tackle each day. So we're going to hear on this slide from an actual caregiver and talking about how she's providing person-centered support.
So with mom, examples around mealtime and cooking, she was willing to allow for my sister and I to prepare meals. And what we would do is have her maybe break apart celery or chop up some bigger size vegetables if we were doing a soup or something, and still incorporate her in those activities. As again, the condition continued to progress, we then would just manage the full preparation ourselves, but supported her process in terms of the eating.
So a great example there of giving some independence. Maybe it's not safe for someone to cook a full meal themselves, but it's something enjoyable. So giving people smaller pieces of the tasks to be a part of the process instead of just making the meal for them and presenting when it's time to eat. So it's a great way to incorporate some independence into what we're doing with our loved ones. So today we're also going to discuss 4 ways that you can support person-centered care. How to plan your approach, simplifying the process, creating the right environment, and identifying health issues. The first strategy is to plan your approach. Before you start an activity, ask yourself, what's the best way I can support the person living with dementia in this particular situation? So a few things to keep in mind is to think about the person's likes and dislikes and their abilities. With each activity, treat the person with dignity and respect, provide them with choices, and plan enough time to finish the task so that a person doesn't feel rushed. And we'll talk a little bit more about offering choices. And again, it's about changing the mindset of what that looks like. I work in a senior living setting. We give the residents the choice of what they want to wear, but we do it in a way that sets them up for success. So instead of opening the closet and saying, what would you like to wear today? We're going to pull out the blue shirt and the red shirt, or the long sleeve and the short sleeve, and we'll say, would you like this or this? They still have the choice in the matter, but we're setting them up for making a good decision. So we talked about planning the process, simplifying the process, where we talked about, I talked briefly there about giving simple options or simplifying tasks. Think about in advance, as you're planning your approach, how to break the activity down into smaller tasks. Focus on one step at a time. Don't take for granted that someone already knows how to brush their teeth, brush their hair, wash their hair in the shower. Break it into steps. Take out extra questions or steps that aren't necessary. Give simple instructions and encouragement to help the person feel successful. You want to create the right environment as well. Keep the area comfortable and free of distractions. You know, Alzheimer's, dementia, it's not just a memory disease. It affects all of our senses, all of our abilities. And I'll use this as an example right now. We're sitting in this room. You all are paying attention to what we're talking about here, but there's all kinds of other things going on. I think there's some kind of lawn care happening out here. I can hear them, doors opening, closing, people moving around. Our brain can filter out all that extra information and allows us to focus on what we're trying to focus on. Alzheimer's and dementia takes those filters away. So even something as simple as having the radio playing while you're trying to complete a task, or the TV on, or if you're part of the sandwich generation with children in the house and they're running around and you're trying to manage both sides, that may not seem to you like a major distraction, but it can be. Remove trip hazards so the person can safely walk around. Sometimes, we said the environment is what's setting someone up for failure in what they're trying to do. And then always allow the person to have some privacy in their area. Another way to support in personal care is to identify health issues. Again, as our seniors are aging, or even the early onset individuals with Alzheimer's or dementia can have other things going on. It's not just about the brain disease. So see if the person's uncomfortable. They might have trouble sitting for a long time. They may have a skin condition that may make them sensitive to touch. Talk to your doctor if you notice any changes in the person's health, whether that's their ability to do things or their reaction to do things, because there could be other underlying issues that are setting up a barrier for them to have that independence. Make sure doctors and nurses know that the person is living with dementia prior to going to appointments for health issues, so that they know how to set the tone themselves as well. And always share if there are medications people are taking. I've seen medications that make people appear to be more progressed in their dementia. It's not the dementia. It's maybe fogging up their brain a bit. So always have those conversations. In my setting, I can tell you when I get medical records, a lot of times, even if doctors are all in kind of the same network, they're not always seeing what the cardiologist put into the system. So it's good to always have that updated when you're talking with your doctor. So all of this is to say that then you've got to apply the process. Those are just a few ways we can support them, but then how do we really live it? So we're going to talk about a few different, the main issues that we're going to deal with on a daily basis to best support someone. Bathing, eating, using the toilet, dressing. We're going to start with dressing. Again, plan your approach. Allow enough time so you don't have to rush. Respect their personal style, including their likes and dislikes. We in my community had a situation where we have a gentleman who dressed very nicely for his entire life, was wearing suits and ties, Fridays maybe some slacks and a button-up and vest. And so that's been his norm. Now, as the disease has changed, his preferences have changed a bit. And so we've been helping him get into his dress-up clothes. And then we're finding after lunch he was changing into a t-shirt and sweats on his own. And so then we had to go, okay, we're changing our approach because obviously that his preference of what he wants to wear right now is different. So if he wants to make those changes, he absolutely can. And it's important to see how much help someone actually needs. Again, if you're giving time, working that into your schedule, and never saying that's easy. But if you're allowing enough time, you may then be able to see that they don't need as much physical help in that moment if you're just giving them the opportunity to process through what they need to do. So they may need help choosing one piece at a time on clothing, or picking out the whole outfit, or having assistance choosing what's appropriate. We're through a heat wave right now. So we don't want someone to wear, the big beautiful sweater that they love to wear, because that's just not appropriate or safe for them in the heat. Simplifying the process, again, helping them. Here's one thing that we do quite a bit is, at night, taking dirty clothes just out of the area so they don't accidentally get back into the system. Offer 2 outfit options. Lay out the clothes in the order. So physically, someone might be able to get dressed but get hung up on what goes on next. Use gentle physical prompts to help them as they're dressing as well. How to create the right environment with dressing is obviously dressing in a safe area. Help them feel comfortable. For example, covering them as they're dressing, maybe changing one piece at a time. So we change the shirt first, and then they're covered, and then help them change their pants next. So making sure you're giving them that privacy and dignity through the process. I'm going to hear from a caregiver here.
My approach to getting my mother dressed as her needs changed and through the process was to keep her involved in what it is that she would put on. My mother was always somewhat of a vain person, and she liked really looking nice. So I would try to buy her outfits that she really liked, that really appealed to her. I would try to buy colors that I knew that she liked. When it was time to get dressed, I would present several outfits to her and let her select what it is that she wanted to wear that day. And just to keep her motivated and as a part of the process, to keep her interacting with me. She really liked looking nice. I liked doing things like keeping her hair done and whatever. And she seemed to appreciate that part of my effort to involve her in the process.
So independence is really centered around that feeling of inclusion in the process. As she shared, she picked out outfits that she knew her mother would love, gave her multiple options so that she was always a part of that as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about putting it into practice. So Lucy's partner, Helen, is living with dementia. Helen usually sleeps late and for the last several months has been able to dress herself without any help. One day, Lucy notices Helen is not wearing underwear or a bra under her clothes. So the next morning, Lucy decides to just dress Helen herself so they can get out the door quickly. So just you can quickly call out what you think. How could Lucy have changed her approach to help Helen remain independent? Would it be best for her each night, Lucy pick out an outfit with Helen and lay out the clothes for the next day to allow more time in the morning? Or instead of letting Helen sleep in, Lucy wake her up an hour earlier so she doesn't have to rush getting Helen dressed in the morning? What's that? 1. Yeah, because who wants to be woken up early, right? So that's a good guess on that. And that is correct. It's not necessarily about changing the time. It's giving yourself the extra time by prepping the night before. So Lucy, and we know that Helen's preference is to sleep later. So to help her be independent, she still has the option to sleep later and then pick out the items the day before. So with simplifying the process, how could Lucy have changed her approach to help her remain independent here? First, Lucy dresses Helen each morning rather than allowing her to dress herself, or Lucy hands Helen one piece of clothing at a time so Helen can dress herself. I see twos. Yes. It may take us a little bit longer, but it's giving that sense of independence. Then here, let's talk about how to create the right environment. Lucy makes sure to close the bedroom curtains when Helen is getting dressed so she has privacy. Or Lucy turns on the TV and watches the news when she's dressing Helen. One. Yes, because we want to limit those distractions. Right. With using the toilet. First, we want to plan the approach. Remind the person to use the bathroom every few hours. Someone may not need help going to the bathroom, but they may need to be reminded to go. Their body may not give them the right triggers until it's just a little too late. So consider when accidents could happen and how you can avoid them. Watch for body language that tells you the person may need to go to the bathroom, then encourage them to do so. I've known people that kind of start fidgeting with the top of their pants, that maybe they're pacing more. You may even see change in facial expression. So you're watching for those physical cues. Think about using protective underwear or pads for the individual as well. Simplifying it is, making sure there's clothing that's easier to take off and put back on. So maybe it's no longer wearing pants with a belt so that it simplifies the process. Make sure the toilet seat's in the right position. And if the person's having trouble, think about using things like portable bedside toilets or raised toilet seats. Creating the right environment. Make sure that the bathroom's easy for the person to find and use. It may be if someone's living at home with you, if you're capable of having where their bedroom is closest to the bathroom, at night have a night light in the bathroom. That helps give an indicator of where they need to go. Find ways to keep the space private and inviting and help them feel safe. Identifying health issues. Determine if the person has bowel or bladder problems such as constipation or incontinence. Again, besides other medical factors, Alzheimer's and other related dementias, they're impacting the brain, which controls the whole body. So it is not just memory and thinking and logic. It's also affecting how the body is working in and of itself. And talk to the doctor if the person's having issues around that.
With toileting, as my mother's needs change, she liked doing it less and less, but I had to do things to sort of entice her to do it. I would say, well, Mother, as soon as you use the toilet, then we'll have our lunch, or as soon as you use the toilet, we'll go ahead and get dressed. I had to sort of bring in other factors to sort of entice her to do her toilet, and it wasn't something she particularly enjoyed, particularly as she lost her ability to walk. But this is the way that I would sort of entice her into the process and to help her understand that there was something on the other side of toileting.
So in my setting, instead of saying, hey, do you need to go to the bathroom, or you should go to the bathroom, we might say, well, we've got lunch coming up. Let's go ahead and stop off to the bathroom before we head there. Or we've got friends coming this afternoon. Let's just go ahead and stop off at the bathroom before we head to the chapel. So finding what works for that person, that, again, that gives them independence and dignity at that approach. So putting it to practice here, we've got Bob, who's living with dementia. Until recently, he's been able to go to the bathroom by himself without any issues. He starts having difficulty finding the bathroom and unbuttoning his pants in time. One day, while doing laundry, his wife Kathy notices Bob's pants are wet with urine. She immediately goes to the store to buy incontinence briefs. She removes Bob's underwear from his dresser and tells him that he has to wear the briefs for now. How could she change that approach? How can she plan? Could Kathy remind Bob to go to the bathroom every 2 hours? Or Kathy buys more pants because Bob's having so many accidents? Number one, giving those reminders. To simplify the process, should Kathy go to the bathroom with Bob so she can pull his pants up and down for him? Or buy pants without zippers or buttons so he can do that himself? Yeah. Simplifying the clothing gives them that independence. Getting into creating the right environment. Should Kathy put a sign on every bathroom door so that Bob can easily find it, or keep the bathroom doors closed at all times? Number one. Yeah, sometimes something just as simple as a sign. I've used in the past also not just the wording, toilet or bathroom, but using pictograms, a picture of a toilet on the outside of a bathroom door. So that if someone's starting to lose the language piece of their understanding, we have those universal pictures. So identifying health issues. Worried he might have a UTI, Kathy calls Bob's doctor to tell him about his new bladder issue, or Kathy continues to buy incontinence briefs for Bob to wear. One. Yes, because again, it may not have anything to do with the dementia process. It could be another health issue that's treatable. Now with eating, planning out the approach on this. Think about what foods the person likes and how they like them cooked. Be flexible with meal times. If the person's upset or refuses to eat, wait and offer them food when they're ready. And look for ways to include the person in making the meal, setting the table, or filling their own plates. I have 2 ladies at my work that they love to help set the table. And they take ownership in that. We have to break it down into little steps, but it gives them ownership and feels like they're the ones that are entertaining everyone. Simplifying the process is offering only a couple of food choices. Give the person time to choose. Example I give of this is somebody may still really enjoy going out and enjoying a meal at a restaurant, but looking at a menu may be overwhelmed by the options and say, well, I don't want any of this, or I don't know, and it can be anxiety inducing. So planning ahead to simplify that process, maybe you take a look at the restaurant's menu and pick out 2 or 3 items that your loved one would enjoy, and have that on their own piece of paper. We do that for outings in senior living, planning ahead with that, giving just a few options. Encourage them with simple instructions. So it may be just placing what is absolutely necessary for each course on the table for each time. Sit next to the person so that you can make eye contact and talk so while you're helping, and it seems natural. You're not reaching over the table to do so. And sometimes it's modifying to make food easier to actually pick up, or using modified forks or knives and spoons that are easier to use. There are a lot of different options out there. Creating the right environment. Again, limiting distractions is a major factor in all of these personal care tasks. If you play music, make sure it's soft and relaxing, keep the volume low, and make sure that the lighting is good. so that they can see it easily. And again, your fourth step is identifying health issues. Watch for changes in their ability to chew or swallow. If they wear dentures, make sure they're fitted correctly. Watch for any kind of mouth sore, swollen gums, loose teeth. Tell the doctor if the person doesn't seem to be eating or drinking so that you can work to best support them.
We realized that she was no longer maybe able to chew things like meats, chicken, and so we started, not by, I guess, a conscious decision, but just because of mom showing us what she could and could not do with regards to eating, doing more of a vegetarian diet for her, and definitely things where we would use softer foods as a disease progressed. So we were able to incorporate different flavors and meals that were still very much a part of the cuisine that she was used to, and the sazon flavors that were familiar to her, with things like eggplant, which was something that maybe she never necessarily had as a child or as an adult, but we were able to season it to her liking, and that's something that we kept kind of on a regular part of our meal planning, to make sure that she still had the nutrients that she needed, but also keeping the flavors that she knew and liked.
So again, here we go, putting it into practice. We have Lee, who is living with Parkinson's disease dementia. He lives with his daughter Naomi and her 2 kids, and is usually independent in preparing and eating his favorite breakfast, toast and butter. The house is usually very noisy in the morning as the kids prepare to go to school, and Naomi notices that Lee is experiencing more tremors with his hands, is having more difficulty using the knife to butter his toast, and keeps dropping the toast when trying to feed himself. He starts staying in his bedroom instead of having breakfast with the family. One morning, Naomi sits Lee at the table with the kids and starts feeding him breakfast. How could Naomi change her approach? Should she ask Lee if he can help by buttering the toast, if she can help by buttering the toast for him? Or should she keep reminding Lee it's morning and it's time to eat breakfast? 1, taking a step of the process and offering to assist with it. How to simplify the process? Could Naomi put jelly on the toast hoping that it'll make Lee want it? Or could Naomi cut Lee's toast into small pieces so it's easier for him to pick up the food and feed himself? Number 2. Creating the right environment. How could she change her approach with this? Should she offer Lee breakfast after the kids go to school when there's less noise? Or should she have Lee eat breakfast in his bedroom while the kids eat in the kitchen? 1. Yes. Sometimes it's just changing the environment by changing the time of day. With the hustle and bustle of the kids, that can be overwhelming and can increase in Parkinson's. If someone is anxious, those things like tremors and becoming stiff can be worse based on that anxiety level. But we also want to identify health issues. So should Naomi call Lee's doctor to tell him, to let him know about the increase in the tremors and the changes in his eating habits? Or Lee looks fine, so she shouldn't look for any health issues? 1. Anytime you have a change in condition, it's important to make sure that you're really communicating that with healthcare providers. And then finally, let's talk about bathing, how to plan out your approach on this. Finding out if the person prefers taking baths or showers, what's their usual routine. So if someone has always been an early riser and took their shower in the morning before starting the day, it's important to try to maintain that type of schedule for them. And making sure you're allowing plenty of time for bathing. Simplifying the process. Use words and actions to show the person how to wash their body. Encourage independence, but provide them help as needed. Focus on cleaning one part of the body at a time and don't rush. It's important to create the right environment, making sure that it's a quiet, relaxing, warm space. A lot of people, as they age, have more sensitivity to temperatures. So I tell my staff, if it's warm enough in the bathroom for you to be sweating, it's the right temperature for the resident, because they're going to get colder easier. Respect the person's privacy, help them feel safe, make sure the room, like I said, is not too cold. There are a lot of great tools out there to help someone be more independent, more comfortable with bathing. They make shower garments that you can actually wash the body through, but it keeps that modesty. Having loofahs on a stick to get those hard to reach places. And again, just breaking it up into steps. Identifying health issues. Again, your fourth step here, consider the person's physical or medical issues, because some of those may affect the bathing process. Find out if they're having any pain or trouble moving around.
I always knew that Kathleen doesn't like a cold bathroom. So when she began to lose her ability to sequence a complete task like taking a shower, I stepped in and got the bathroom warm for her, started the shower at the risk of wasting a little bit of hot water, such that I could tell her, "Sweetheart, I got the bathroom nice and warm, all steamy and warm for you. Come on in." And of course that led to lots of laughs when she walked in and saw my glasses all steamed up. She thought that was just the funniest thing, but she was grateful that I had cared enough to get the bathroom warm for her. And then initially, of course, she didn't want any help, in the shower. That's a very personal thing, and I respected that, but nevertheless, I stayed in the bathroom, just making sure that she was okay. And then gradually, I said, could I help you with the shampoo there? And I assured her that I knew all about taking care of hair, but she allowed me to help with the shampoo to make sure that we got it all out of her hair. And then, of course, the luxury of nice warm towels waiting for her as she stepped out of the shower. She really appreciated that. And my goodness, what a great, somewhat intimate connection that was, to be able to help my wife in the shower. It was, I'm sorry that I had to do it, but I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do it.
I hope what you take away from hearing from the caregivers also is finding the moments of, there's actually a book over there titled this, Moments of Joy in Caregiving, finding the joy in providing that help with whatever the process is, whether it was the first woman talking about helping her mom maintain that appearance she enjoys having, or this gentleman finding the joy in being able to help his wife. So here we go again. We're going to put it into practice. Barbara's living with frontotemporal dementia, known as FTD in short, and her husband Joe recently made the difficult decision to move her into a nursing home. She's in a wheelchair, has trouble communicating, and has always been very modest. When she lived at home, Joe would help her shower in the morning when she was more alert and relaxed. She always preferred to wash her face and arms with a washcloth. While visiting Barbara, Joe learned that she got upset with the staff and resisted taking a bath the night before and would not let them wash her. So how could the staff better support her independence in their approach? Joe suggests that the staff offer Barbara a shower in the morning, as this was her routine at home. Or should Joe agree that the staff should keep trying to give Barbara a bath, as she would eventually have to agree? Number one. Absolutely. It's all about keeping a routine and finding the times that work appropriately for someone. So how could the staff simplify the process? Joe recommends that the staff quickly wash Barbara to shorten the amount of time she's upset, or Joe could show the staff how he would put soap on a washcloth and then give Barbara verbal cues on how to wash her face and arms. 2, yes. It's all about knowing the person's preferences, educating those that are stepping into that caregiver role, and creating the right environment. So should Joe suggest that the staff quickly wheel Barbara from her room to the shower room after they get her ready for a shower? Or should he ask the staff if they can get Barbara ready for her shower in the shower room where it's quiet and warm? 2. Yes. And that sets the tone, not just of that we're getting a shower, but sometimes just seeing the space helps understand. So I'm going to pick on you because you're right here. I might be coming to help you take a shower, and I say, we're going to get you a shower today. That may not compute for you of what that actually means if we're just standing in your bedroom. But it may mean something much different when I take you into the bathroom and show you the shower and the items we have. Sometimes those environmental cues can help make the connection in what our words aren't connecting through communication. And before I leave the right environment too, is especially if someone's living at home and being cared for, the bathroom is a place where a lot of modifications could and should be made to help with independence. Obviously, there's limited space or resources to do it, but there are various things that you can put in place, even in a residential bathroom, that can better support someone. Whether, as they talked about, a raised toilet seat, or adding extra handrails inside of a shower. If you are able to switch out a bathtub for a walk-in shower, that helps someone stay independent a little longer. So different things that can be done to help kind of facilitate that independence. A lot of times when we have to do something for someone, it's because there may not be tools in place for them to be able to do it. So it's important for the staff to provide the right amount of support again, so Barbara can be as independent as she can for as long as she can. What could Joe do to help with identifying health issues? Should Joe ask the nurse if Barbara's had any changes in medication or any other health concerns? Or should he just assume that the staff will let him know if there's any changes? 1. Yes. Even if your loved one's living in a community setting, it's still just as important for you to keep yourself informed and engaged in the process, because again, no matter how long somebody lives in a senior living setting, you know that person better than anyone. What their past likes and dislikes were, how their routines were. So it's important to always stay involved. So it's important when we're looking for ways to help a person living with dementia to maintain that independence, to consider how to help them stay engaged in daily life. This includes finding activities they enjoy and find meaningful and rewarding. For example, if the person's always enjoyed food and making meals, maybe they can set the table. Maybe you can give them vegetables to help cut up, or measuring out items for a recipe. Finding what piece of that step that they can participate in to help them still have meaning. Sorry. Let's take a look at some tips and tricks to make activities successful. Keep the person's skills and abilities in mind. Stick with activities the person's good at or has always liked to do. For example, a person with dementia may be able to play simple songs learned on the piano years ago. Keep in mind that you may need to make adjustments to match their current ability. An example for that is putting toothpaste on the toothbrush. We talked about how many steps are in that process. That may be the barrier to them doing it independently, just not knowing what to do with the tools until they're set up and in their hand. Pay attention to what the person enjoys. Take note when the person seems happy, anxious, distracted, or irritated. So if some people enjoy watching sports, some people enjoy watching sports while others may be afraid of the pace or noise. And it's important to keep in mind as the disease progresses, that may change also. Someone that may be really into watching football or watching hockey, maybe as the disease progresses, it does become too overwhelming to do that. So sometimes you might have to switch gears. So when we talked about creating the environment with personal care, it's very much important with enjoyable activities as well. So help get the activity started. Offer assistance to get them started, such as folding the first towel, or drying the first dish. Talk through the steps as you do them. Most people living with dementia can still do things with just the right amount of support. Focus on doing the activity and not the results. I've spent this month I've had my 18th anniversary of working in senior living, and the majority of it has been creating dementia-centered activities programs. And I always say it doesn't matter how it ended up as long as we enjoyed how we got there. And that's important to keep in mind with your loved one as well. It's not important that something's done right. Does it matter if towels are folded a certain way? Hopefully not. I know sometimes we're particular about things. But what matters is that they feel useful and that you're able to spend that time together. Break activities into easy to follow steps. Keep it simple. Try to focus one task at a time. Too many directions at once can be overwhelming. If you notice the person's having trouble with the more difficult parts of the task, step in and offer to help. Talk to the person. Describe what you're doing while you're cleaning the house, folding laundry, or cooking dinner. Even if they can't respond, they'll benefit from the communicating. And sometimes it's just try it again later. If something isn't working, it may just be the wrong time of day, or the activity could be too hard for the person in that moment. Remember, I said what works today may not work tomorrow. It's important to know that in that case, you may need to make changes to the activity or try it again another time. Doesn't always mean that it's something you can never do again. It's all about the right amount of support, and that differs for each person. It differs day to day. It differs for each caregiver's ability. But it's important to figure out how you and your support system can provide the right amount of support for each person. It's important to find a balance. Too much or too little support can have unintended consequences. For example, providing too little support can make the person feel frustrated or make them want to give up on a task. Too much support can make the person feel like their thoughts, emotions, and abilities aren't important anymore and may make them not want to participate. Person-centered care can help you provide just enough support. In some cases, this can even mean the person's able to do more for themselves for a longer period of time. So I will send this out to you as well because I wasn't able to print this, but there is a take-home activity that we can send out to you if it's helpful on kind of it helps you evaluate your current situation and think about how to best support someone for that independence. So if you like to put pen to paper, it's a great document to do so. It helps you consider what you know about the person, helps lay out what their preferences are, gives you some keynotes to ask. And then we get so bogged down sometimes in caregiving and life in general, we may forget to even stop and ask, how do you want this? How would you like this? Helps you kind of plan out how to organize the environment, such as how to make your schedule, match their best times of day with the most important activities. If your loved one experiences sundowning, which is an increased level of confusion, often later in the day, then you may want to plan your most important activities earlier in the day. Doctor's appointments, personal care tasks, visits from family and friends. You may want to move those around. Maybe the opposite. Someone's a late sleeper, so it's just best not to make that 9 a.m. doctor's appointment because all it's going to do is stress you and stress your loved one to make that and could set you up for failure for the rest of the day. So it is a great tool to work through that. With independence, providing as much independence as we can with someone that's living with a dementia, it's also important to balance safety in that aspect. So to help you apply what you've learned today, we'll have that packet, but we'll also talk about, briefly here, like I said, focusing on safety. Because someone that has a dementia diagnosis, it doesn't change the fact that they want to be an independent person. Oftentimes, as the disease progresses, a person doesn't understand what their skills and abilities are anymore. I have a resident that we cannot take her laundry to her room while she is in there because she's so adamant that she's the one that puts them away, but she doesn't know to keep her walker with her, and so her falls generally are if she's trying to do those things by herself. So we either bring it in with her and put it away with her, or find a time when she's doing another enjoyable activity, because it's just she's not going to make safe decisions in the process. So a knowledge check for you is true or false. You only need to worry about safety in the late stages of the disease. False. That's true. It's never too early to create a plan for a person's safety. It reduces risks and prevents injuries and can also make everyone feel more relaxed. Again, like I said, it's a brain disease. It's not just memory, but it also affects logic and thinking. So making decisions that are appropriate may not be something someone's able to do anymore. So we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to set them up for success. You want them to stay as independent as possible. It can be very important to someone living with dementia. As the disease progresses, it gets harder to balance that safety with independence. Again, it's not a black and white. But it is important to try to anticipate what safety measures to put in place before an accident happens. So how does it affect safety? First is that the changes in the brain causes issues with judgment, forgetting how to do things like safely use a stove, or to even remember to turn a stove off. Sense of time and place. Someone may get lost even in familiar places or be at risk for wandering. We're in an age of so much technology. There are a lot of tools out there to help with this. For some people, it may be something as simple as having someone's location on their cell phone, even early on in the disease process. Because we talked about earlier, even in the early stages of the disease, individuals can still live independently and safely on their own with the right tools. Dementia affects safety and how it can change someone's behavior. Someone may become easily anxious, confused, or afraid, and they may not trust other people. It affects the physical ability. So dementia, again, it affects people's gait, their balance, increases their risk of falls, and it even affects things like your ability to chew and swallow. That's a safety risk as well. It affects the senses. There are changes in vision and hearing that can happen with dementia. Sensitivity to temperatures. They might even have trouble with depth perception and find it difficult to judge where objects are around them. When I talk about this, I use an example of a resident I had many, many years ago. She and I always went on an afternoon walk before dinner together because she liked to be on the move. And so I would take her out of the memory care, which was on the smaller side, and we would walk a couple laps in the assisted living area because it was kind of circular. Well, it became a time where that was no longer safe because of her vision, because the carpet in the traditional assisted living was a lot busier. And I'm out there one day and I've discovered that that she was watching the carpet, and I will never forget, we got to one spot and she goes, "Oh, a cookie." And she bent down and was trying to pick up a flower design that was on one of the pieces of carpet. And every time we would hit one of those patches, her brain went, "Oh, a cookie," and she would try to bend down. So we had to find a new way to do our walking because that wasn't safe. But that was that vision change. To her, it was popping up. Why a cookie? I don't know. That must just be what she enjoyed having. And so she and I would have walks in other places and every now and then have a cookie, an actual cookie on the walk too. So home safety is really important, especially in a senior living setting where we have various means of trying to make things safe. It's a little more difficult in a traditional house. So you want to keep eyes on things like garages, workrooms, basements, outdoor areas. Make sure tools, chemicals, cleaning supplies, and other items are safely secure. To help with this, if you go to alz.org/checklist, there's an actual home safety checklist that has multiple tips of things. There are things that we may not even think about being a safety risk. When we talked about the changes in the senses, even a change in pattern of flooring can appear that one's higher than the other and could create a fall risk there. Brightly colored liquids might be actual cleaning products, but look like something to drink. So there's different things that we need to do in the home to make a safe environment. Driving safety is important. Early on, if someone's getting an early diagnosis, doesn't mean that they're not able to continue to drive to an extent. There are still people that are driving and working with an early diagnosis. But someday, the person living with dementia will no longer be able to drive. So it's important to discuss how retirement from driving will be handled before it becomes an issue. Explore other transportation options. And again, alz.org/driving has a lot of tips on how to make a plan to stop driving. It should go without saying that we need to think of firearms safety. Firearms can be dangerous for everyone when someone in the home is living with dementia. Consider removing guns and other weapons from the home or storing them in a locked cabinet. Invite trusted relatives, hunting buddies, and other authority figures to take part in that discussion as well. Finding ways to get around safely. Look for places where people might trip or fall in the home or yard. Make sure the person takes a fully charged phone or GPS with them if they go for a walk. Tell neighbors that the person is living with dementia. And it is still so stigmatized, but really you need full support. So if someone's living at home with you, it is important, because if someone does wander away from the house, it has other eyes out there watching for you. And enroll the person in a medical identification program. You can find information on that on the Alzheimer's website as well. There's a program that you can enroll in that helps filter that information out to law enforcement agencies. So if someone ever wanders off, they can be identified as someone living with dementia. All of this being said, it's a lot to do, but it's also important that you manage your expectations. Yeah, I said earlier, multiple times, you meet one person with dementia, you've met one person. Every day can be different. And so it's important to not just manage your expectations of your loved one, but manage expectations for yourself as well. Ask yourself what really matters. Anybody's got kids or grandkids might sing the song in their head, Let It Go. But it really is, it's a choose your battles kind of thing. In the moment you go, is it important that this has to be done right now? There's so much that we may get anxious about as caregivers that really isn't important in the moment. Have words you can repeat to yourself to help you focus on what's important. Our anxiety can increase their anxiety. Someone with dementia is looking around for cues on how to respond to a situation. And if we're up here, they're going to meet us up there as well. So whether you're looking for more information on supporting independence or you have other questions about topics we've covered today, the Alzheimer's Association is available for everyone. As you saw back here, I hope when you came in, there's a handful of resources. There's a plethora on the website, and there are people here locally at our local chapter that can meet with families and talk through things like this, how to make your home safe, care planning out what it'll look like in the future. Because your best tool for providing independence, for making this a journey that you all can still find joy through, having resources is really the number one key. Know what's out there for you. The association has not just the local chapter, there's support groups, one that meets here every month. There are still some virtual floating around as well. The Alzheimer's Association's AARP and AARP Community Resource Finder is where you're going to find programs like this all around the area. So you can find locations that work for you and topics that work for you. All of those parts of the website that were referenced in the program, and then ALZ Connected and ALZ Navigator, again, ways to connect with other resources outside of the association, and education programs all over and online. All right, well, I appreciate you all being here. I hope you have some tools to take home for yourself or to share with a loved one that may be caregiving. And again, if you don't take anything else out this door, is just, give yourself and your loved one grace and know there are resources. Pick up the phone, call the association. They can help guide in that direction. So thank you all. And